Hey everybody, and welcome to the Fosse Verdon After Show here on AfterBuzz TV. This week we're going to be talking about affairs, we're going to be talking about dancing, breakups, and of course we're going to be talking about mambos. Let's get into it.
You're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Hey everybody, welcome to the AfterBuzz TV After Show here for Fosse Verdon, episode 2, Who's Got the Pain?
Woo!
We got some really good backstory this episode. We got the very beginning and the very end of a relationship, actually the very end of 2 relationships.
We did indeed.
I am your host, Brianna Phipps, and in case you didn't know, I'm a huge Broadway nerd. My favorite movie growing up and one of my favorite shows in the world is Cabaret, so this is the perfect show for me. And I am not alone. I am joined right next to me by Miss Kim Davey, who's a huge Chicago fan. She did shows in New Zealand, and she has her own dance company called She Shines Sun Dance Tours. Is that right?
She Shines On.
She Shines On.
Bit of a tongue twister. Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Kim Davey, originally from New Zealand, hence the accent. But yeah, grew up with Broadway, grew up wanting to be on Broadway, but in New Zealand it was all about just doing the local productions. So the Cats, the You're in Town, the West Side Story, etc.
And You're in Town. You're getting into the...
Yeah.
Very nice. So this is definitely a show for you.
Yeah, I love this show. I mean, it's literally been created literally for theatre buffs alone, hasn't it? You have to know your background, you have to know your Fosse, and so excited to be able to do this and just woohoo, rock out every night.
Well, let's get right into it. So what was your overall thoughts of this episode?
Well, I think as we were talking before, I definitely thought it made more sense tonight, which was nice. It kind of seemed not chronological, but at least you could keep up a little more. It's just so fabulous. I just really enjoy Michelle Williams acting. I just think she's incredible, and yeah, it's just so exciting. I just want to see more and more. I would like to sit there and watch all of them in one go. That's
I really enjoyed tonight's episode. Like, I love that we got the beginning of the relationship, because that was something that I was lacking from last week that I really wanted to know about. And because while we know a lot about Fosse, like for some reason Gwen Verdon, even though she's such a huge person in the Broadway background, she's not necessarily a name that you say and tons of people are like, oh yeah, but Fosse you do. So even though she had just as big, if not bigger, a career as him.
It's amazing how that works. For me, for example, Fosse came about purely through Chicago. Like, that was the one musical that I think is done so many places around the world constantly, and that's where you hear about him to begin with. Well, for me it was. So I think just because Chicago was so big on its own, that's where a lot of people hear
Especially
Fosse.
when the movie came out.
Yeah, and the mainstream will hear more of Fosse, I think, through the likes of Chicago versus Gwen.
That's very true. But I am so excited, and that's what I liked about this episode, and that's what I'm looking forward to in future episodes, is really getting to know Gwen as a person. Because I feel like we've seen the story of Fosse so many times, and all that jazz. He basically told us who he was, which we're seeing now portrayed again by Sam Rockwell. Both of them doing amazing jobs.
So good. Just the tonality in her voice getting that matched is so incredible. Michelle Williams for Gwen, she's incredible, and her body, what she's got it to for this show is a lot of hard work for sure.
I mean, yeah, and you're playing someone from a very young age and then going to a very old age.
Yeah.
So we talked about last week in our news section that she had to learn how bodies work for people that are older, especially with dancers.
Yeah.
So that's been quite the treat to look to. Let's start off with talking about Fosse and Verdon and their meeting. So we're working on Damn Yankees, and Gwen already has the part, but then they're like, you know what, we got this new choreographer, Fosse, and you need to go basically audition for him, which she is not happy about.
She is not happy. But then, as we find out later, that she was never auditioning anyway, wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
But I think that's very much like his character. Like, he wants to have that control. So I think he wanted her to think that she was auditioning. Because he is so sly with it. She's like, you never told me I was in an audition. He's like, you never asked me.
Yeah.
And I think he likes that control factor.
Oh, he totally does. He totally does. Poor girl as well, someone that famous who's been given the role, and then she has to go in there and shimmy her way up to him. But what I really loved, and is just a perfect example of a true professional dancer, is just how fast she picked up the choreo, and how she just got it, and she could completely do everything that he wanted.
And how she added on to him.
Yeah, giving him ideas as well.
That's where we kind of see the start of not only is she his muse, but she takes what he gives her and almost makes it better.
Of course. Behind every successful man is a more successful woman backing him up, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Amen.
That is our queen producer in the booth, Steph Sabra, always hitting us with the great sound effects, especially for the women. Snaps.
Love it.
And we also, so you guys know, I am in the chat. Jazz is here as well, and they say overall thought seems Fosse is the villain of the piece.
Yeah,
That's
definitely.
quite true to real life, I feel like, as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But their relationship kind of develops from there. They very easily transfer into this working relationship of dancing, and like it's almost like she's his assistant in a way, as we see in the room where she's kind of teaching everybody else these moves as well, because she can do it, and like other people are having a hard time with this choreography that they're being given from him.
Yeah, that's interesting. In a way, yes, absolutely assistant. I kind of thought that she was without realizing that she wasn't, but it just seemed so natural to her. But also interesting, it's like she was translating, which is kind of ironic considering his third wife, but she's like translating the pieces for the plebs to understand exactly what he's after. But it was interesting as well. She had a little bit of a firecracker moment when they were doing the piece at the start with all the girls, and, you know, it was her idea to fire one to get rid of one, and, you know, there was a bit of a ruthless streak in there.
She definitely had more power than maybe people thought she did on many of the productions. She was so well known, and she was so trusted, and she won Tonys. I mean, duh.
Yeah, she's amazing. I want a Tony.
Right. But then we see this kind of progress more and more so as we go on, and then even to the point where we're now going into the previews for Damn Yankees, and one of the dances isn't working, and he has the big blow up in the hotel room, and he can't. We saw it happen in the first episode where he needed her to come and like kind of be his translator, and we see it this episode where he's like, I can't think, I can't process, and he needed her to be like, okay, but this is what we're gonna do.
Again, that whole men need a woman, a straight thinking, incredible woman to guide them, support them, and help them out. He's just such a creative genius, though. He really was. And they all need grounding.
It was
and
just
she
almost
was definitely there.
Yeah, and it was just almost like he couldn't, like he had the idea and the thought in his brain, but he couldn't
articulate it?
He could only convey it through the dance. He couldn't articulate what he needed, what he wanted.
Yeah.
And that's what Gwen was for. Gwen was his translator to the world.
Exactly.
Like, this is really what he means, and this is what you need to do.
Yep.
But the number that we're getting, that they want something more fun, they want something more upbeat. And so we get Mamba.
Yeah, which I love. And Gwen hated, obviously, to begin with. She's like,
Well, she said quite, you know.
I want funny.
It was just, they want funny, they want upbeat. And this is a song saying, like, it's pain, it's despair, it's all this.
It's true.
And that's true. But he was also correct in saying, you know, that's the words. And that's what I want the words to be. But all anybody out there is going to see that's not really listening is the fun dancing and jokes.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's just obviously the way that it's the fact that his wife is in so much pain at the time, Joan. It's just interesting juxtaposition with those two.
And it's also just a great metaphor for like creative people in general, where, you know, it's often associated with creative people that they are tormented.
Yeah.
They've gone through terrible things in their past, that they have all this pain, but then they put on a show for other people. Comedians especially, you know, they make people laugh because they themselves are tormented by certain things. And that's a theme that we see over and over again in creative people. And that's something he's trying to showcase through his work, but he's doing it in a sly way.
Yeah.
Where he's like, I'm not going to hit you on the nose with it, but if you get it, you get it.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. It's so true. So many creatives, let's be real, so many creatives are very distraught and interesting within their brains and their creative outlet. I just love the juxtaposition of the comedy with the, you know,
there
who's
was
got
like
the pain.
There was the Tony Awards, I'm trying to think of how many years ago it was, Neil Patrick Harris was hosting, and he had this whole thing about Broadway actors trying to do television and their shows being canceled.
Yeah.
And Megan Hilty, who had just Smash was just canceled, she comes out and they have this whole thing of like what they did. They sing "What I Did for Love," from a chorus line, and her little line is like, "What I did for just people to love me and notice me because we were never hugged as children," which is why we got into this business in the first place. So it's like, this is a reoccurring.
A second injured. Yeah.
Even nowadays, like it's still being forced down our throat that creative people have tormented pasts.
Well, and it makes sense because I know dance, for example, is a great outlet and avenue for those that are, you know, struggling. It's like release the body and the mind will follow. It's healing. The arts is healing for all the internal pain that happens. So it's like what he put there through Who's Got the Pain, you know, Mumbo, was literally something that happens every single day for actors and performers worldwide.
And it
just
is
putting
such
on
a funny piece
stage.
because like the music and the feeling behind it does not match the words.
Oh, that's what's so great.
I
isn't
know. And it's like, it is true. Like, that's definitely a song that if you're not really paying attention to the lyrics, you're just dancing along with it. It seems fun. It seems upbeat. It seems hunky-dory.
Hunky-dory, I like that.
Hunky-dory. I feel like that's a word my mom used, and I'm getting it from her. But you know what else is fun? Being here every week and being able to engage with you guys at home. And Kim, you have a very special message to give out to them.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hi everyone. Before we just move into the next topic, though, we just wanted to say thank you so much for helping make us the ESPN of TV talk. For us to continue to grow, we could use your help, though. So, pretty please, fingers crossed, do what I'm about to say. So, if you're on YouTube right now, hit the thumbs up button for us. It would be amazing, and subscribe. And if you're on iTunes, please give us a 5-star rating, because 5 stars is the best option, always. But no matter where you are, leave us a comment so you can get involved in the conversation. As we said, we're on the live chat as well. Brie would love to shout you out. But being part of AfterBuzz TV has meant so much to all of us, and we truly appreciate your support and letting us do what we love, which is talking about musicals all the time. So don't forget to tell your friends and just keep enjoying our shows, and then we can keep doing them. Hey.
Yes, thank you guys so much. And just to shout out the couple of you that are in the live chat right now, Jazz41173 and Watcher Carter, we really appreciate you joining in our
Jazz.
conversation. I'm watching along, so if you have anything to say, put in there, and it might just get shout out on air. And if you're just watching and you don't want to be part of the conversation yet, you can always go in there later and put it in the comments below. And I will give you guys a deal. If you're listening to this on iTunes and you give us that 5 stars, I will read your comment out on air next week.
Well, exciting. I might do it myself.
There you go. So moving on, though, we have this affair take place between Fosse and Verdon. And it happens very quickly, like the way they portray it.
Well, yeah. Yes, very quickly.
It's like we've met, we're dancing, and boom.
Well, like I told you, I for a minute was like, hold on, has he gone home to his wife? Like, what's happening in these scenes? Like,
Well, because then they shot it so darkly at first, you're just like, wait, is he with his wife? But you see this, like, you know, he has this first dance rehearsal with her, and he was only going to do, 16 bars? And it
the whole
turned
thing.
into doing a whole dance because they just vibed. And he goes home to his wife. She's like, what, it's so late. Why are you coming home so late? And you're already seeing this. And just right away, we get the sex scene with Verdon, right along with Joan.
yeah.
Him explaining to Joan.
Or a sick wife. What I did appreciate later on, though, was that Vernon was very apprehensive of continuing the relationship when she actually found out Joan was sick.
Yeah.
Kudos to her for that.
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to, no matter if you stay in an affair or not, I always feel like there's some sort of guilt. Like, if you don't have guilt, then I don't think that you're a human.
Or you're something else.
Like, there's people that have the guilt and just choose to ignore it or choose to make excuses to stay in the relationship. And there's people who have the guilt who can't. It's literally tearing them apart.
Yeah.
So it's one or the other, I feel like.
But it was interesting later on as well when Joan confronted her in the ladies' room, and then she was upset by that, obviously. Gwen was. And then outside, and I thought she was going to have a breakdown and push him away, but that's when she was really, into him again. I was like, hold on, lady.
Yeah, we'll get more into that in just a moment.
Yeah, cool.
But that was a really intense scene. But this scene that we get right off the bat, right after this, with the wife, is that she comes to rehearsal.
Yeah.
And she lets him know, like, it's happened again, and meaning she can't stand up. Which you did some research.
It's the diabetes.
She had diabetes, and she didn't want people to know she had diabetes.
No.
So she did everything in her power, which is why he had to end dance rehearsal and kind of get everybody out. And we're already seeing Joan at this point, Verdon at this point, Gwen, get very
touchy-feely.
Yeah, I mean, how would you what would you do in that position? You're having sex with this man, and you've never, even though you know he's married, you've never been confronted with the physical person that you're doing this to, and now you see her in person. I mean, that has to wear on you, right?
Slightly awkward, and especially when she's spinning around his neck as she walks in. She's like, oh, went too far there. Yeah, awkward. I don't know. It's so rampant in the theatre industry, though, isn't it? These show romances and all this kind of fairy tale stuff.
In Hollywood in general, there's a big theme of people not committing in entertainment industry, but it is hard. You're away from your loved one from a very long time, and you're on these shows. Not that it excuses or says that you should do it, but you're on these shows with these other people, and you're creating bonds. And
yeah. See, I always like, nah, don't buy that, because there's so many industries that are away from their families and away from their loved ones. What I reckon it is I think it's like the heightened sense of creation and imagination world. Like you're usually on a piece, you know, in a play or a musical or whatever, that's not real life. So you're playing characters. And so you feel like you can slip into that a little further.
I think it could be a little bit of A, a little bit of B, but I think that ultimately it comes down to you have choices and you can make the choices to be committed or you can make the choices not. At some point you feel like, though, like this is already his second wife.
Yeah.
Being Gwen, you would think, like at some point you'd be like, this seems to be a pattern. And then the pattern obviously we see continues with her, as we'll talk about later, but it's just,
it's sad.
I feel like women have this dying need to want to change men, and they always think that I'm the one that's different. There is always that it's not going to happen to me because it's different with me.
Yeah. Or it's also these show romances, and these men who are creatives are so good at wooing a woman. You know, such
Well, creative genius is very attractive.
Oh yeah, that's hot as well in itself. But then also they usually have a way, and especially if you can dance as well, like hello, they can chasse into your life. So I find, yeah, absolutely, it's the creativity, it's the fact that if they're not gay and in the industry is always a bonus for girls. So that's hello, and then yeah, the dance ability and the schmoozing and the just you know, I mean, we've been there. Broadway.
And Gwen's not completely innocent in this either. She has a boyfriend as well.
Yeah, exactly.
She's not married, but she's still cheating on this man and deceiving him. And, you know, we see her come in that next scene and she's kind of avoiding him and like not trying to look him in the eye. And it's that very like shameful thing where she has a shame, but we see him have none of it. He doesn't seem to feel any of that shame.
No, doesn't seem to process it at any level other than the surface.
Well, and she's like, she kind of says to him, you know, like, you have this sick wife. You have like,
I know.
We're doing this to a woman that's sick, and he's just like, no, it like nothing.
I love you. Yeah. No, that's wrong. I'm sorry, but I don't care what industry you're in. There's morals and there's what's right and what's wrong, and I do not think you should have been messing around on a wife who was sick. At least wait for it to pass, obviously, seriously.
Well, and it's that thing too, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jazz in the chat, but I believe you're saying that if he cheats on you, he'll cheat on you. It means that if you're the person that he's having the affair with, if that's how you guys got together, then you have to almost assume that that's what's going to happen to you in the future.
Yeah. And why would you waste something that's real on something that you never know how it's going to turn out? I suppose that's in any industry or whatever, but I don't know, like if she'd actually looked back and had a look at the first wife and then the second wife, and as Joan tells her later, the same thing's going to happen again. Why would you go after that kind of a person? Like, keep them as a friend and have fun with them, with the dance, etc. But keep your personal life separate, because at the end of the day, the show ends. Yeah. The show ends, and you have to go back to real life where you may not have work for a while, and reality strikes again. And hello, are we really with the right person who's going to look after you forever?
At this point in his career, it doesn't seem like he has any children. I believe he only had the one daughter with her, with Gwen. Cool. But so it's like, at least there's not that messiness yet. But then, of course, in the future, we know there's going to be that messiness of a child, which even is more distraught. But then we've jumped forward a little bit more, and we're in these previews where we were when the whole Mambo thing came up. And we see that they're both there with their significant other. And Joan has an idea of what's going on. We haven't really been let into that. But I think being with a man like that, who had such commitment issues, that you just always are on edge and always assuming he's with somebody, because
it would be awful.
Yeah, it's a terrible way to have
to
live.
But again, good point about if she was part of the creation of that for somebody else, i.e. Joan, she caused that with him splitting up with Joan, then it's kind of karma. Yeah. Like, she kind of deserves it.
I mean, I don't believe that anyone deserves it, because it's a terrible thing to have to go through, but it's definitely not something that is as surprising. Yeah. For sure. But yeah, we see that in the bathroom scene that you mentioned earlier, where Gwen and they are kind of meeting, definitely been in the same room together before. But she tells her, you know, I'm such a huge fan of yours. And she kind of slyly like lets her know, like, yeah, so I met him on a show and he had a wife. And soon after that, he left that wife for me and we got together. And I got him his first role, like not role, but his first job in the entertainment industry. And I gave him this career. and now he's turning around and doing that to me, so hopefully you'll have better luck, is what she said.
I had utmost respect if that's actually how it played out for Joan and that, just how she keeps it all together and delivers the information as it needs to be delivered.
And of course, Gwen at that moment is just like, what do you do?
Oh my God. Well, at the end, when she's like throwing her stuff down, oh my goodness, I need a smoke.
Yeah,
basically.
like what do you can't say anything back to that.
No,
like you
'cause
can't
you're
plead your
caught.
case.
No.
There's no case to plead.
No,
Like,
not
that
at
was
all.
a very definite like Queen moment of like boom and I'm out.
I just think it was so amazing how women back in in generals from all the movies and stuff that you watch, how they keep it together and then they go back and sit with their husbands and they're good little ladies and then at the end
Well,
they
it's
just
definitely
leave them.
that it's definitely a time period thing
Absolutely.
of like
today?
women should be seen and not heard, like just like children should be seen and not heard. And it was, you didn't have public fights, you had private fights.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Not like today where you'd throw their stuff on the lawn.
In my own family, that was kind of a similar thing. Like we didn't have fights in front of, if company was over, and then I would go to friends' houses and their family would fight in front of like me, and it was such a foreign thing. So it's definitely something that is breaking nowadays, but it was definitely
It's
a long
interesting.
tradition of you don't air your dirty laundry in front of people.
Yeah, and I agree, definitely, absolutely agree, and I still think it should be the case. I actually prefer the old way of it happening.
Well, it makes it very awkward for anybody else around you.
It's true. Well, exactly. But no, I mean, today, if we did just keep it together and then just deal with it later, I think there's more respect in that than just losing it.
Jazz said that Nicole, which is his child, is his only child and is actually a producer on the show.
I know,
So,
yes. I saw
thank
that.
you, Jazz.
Thanks, Jazz.
That's really cool that she's I love it when
Having
they
an
involve the
input.
family, because the family's gonna hopefully, give the truest story that we
And know
can
a little
get.
more.
You obviously we're always gonna change things up for television because we need to make it a little more dramatic or a
Yeah.
little more entertainment wise.
Yeah.
But as true to the story as possible is always the best course for me. And then we also move forward afterwards to her having the smoke and Fosse finding her, and then kind of having this really intense moment of passion. And then he tells her to leave her husband or her boyfriend, and she's like, only if you leave her. And at that moment, he doesn't say anything, but it's kind of like, no, I won't. But then we jumped right to Joan leaving him.
So selfish. Double standards. Aye.
But
Boys.
that's a common thing of like, I can have what I want, but you have to be mine.
I don't think that's common. Oh, God.
Like, not common like in everybody's life, but like on people that cheat. Like that's they don't want you cheating
But
on
they want
them.
their cake and eat it too.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But yeah, so that's kind of the affair that we get, and then we know as we end that part of it, Gwen and him are now kind of moving in together almost.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then we get the kind of drastic turn because we jump
Right
to
to
the
the
other
end.
part of it is we're going to the very end of their
Yeah.
relationship. We're in Morocco with her friend
And
Joan Simon.
Joan Simon, yeah.
And they're basically like, this is the last plea for their relationship to work. And
Well, he thinks it is, but she's like, well.
I think it's the last plea for her at first, but when he drops the news that I'm in love with this girl, then she's done.
Yeah, good.
Because she's having this talk with her friend. Her friend's kind of telling her like, you should make it work. Like these things happen, infidelities happen, but just make it work. And they go to the beach, and he drops that. He's like, I'm in love with this girl, but that doesn't mean I'm not in love with you.
Oh, I can't stand
And
men
then
like
he
that.
kind of says it straight out to her. He's like, why don't we just keep doing what we're doing, and then I'll just still have her? Like, why is that so bad?
I just want to smack him.
I know. It was definitely like a very painful scene to have to watch, because you're just like, as a woman, you're like,
Asshole.
like, how are you saying this? And like, how are you?
How do you think it's right and it's
Yeah,
okay?
exactly. How do you think she should react?
Yeah,
to
like,
this?
do you want me to say, oh, sure, that'd be awesome. Oh my God, bring her over even. Like, have
honestly,
dinner.
like if I, no, I'm not a man, and I've never cheated on somebody, so I've never been in that position, so I can't speak 100%. But I would like to think that I wouldn't want to be with somebody that would be okay with me cheating on them.
Wow, yeah, but I was thinking about that when they're having that conversation. He was so manipulative, like around her, kissing her, holding her, pulling her. Then in the car, hands on the window as it goes up.
Well, he's done the
mind
game for
screw.
so long.
Oh yeah,
And we see that because she starts telling him like, oh wait, this is the scene, this is the part where you say this, right? And oh wait, you forgot your line,
she's
darling.
brilliant.
love when she gets sassy.
Yeah.
It is my favorite.
I-
Last week I said I wanted her to like let loose, and I got it this episode, and I was so happy with it.
Yeah.
And I loved that she delivered it as though we were in a scene. Like,
Yeah.
oh wait, you forgot this one line where you
perfect.
tell me about this.
That's when she
When you
finally
say
has
you'll never do
control.
it again. You forgot that line,
Yeah.
darling.
Yeah.
Do you want to retake it?
Yeah, so good. Showing that
She's
she
like, we've done
finally
it too many times. It's lost its its appeal.
perfect show business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she just says it with such confidence, and she's done. Like at this point, she's done. And she gets into that cab, and she's like, you don't live with us anymore. I've already told our daughter. That
Call her yourself.
When she's like, call her and you tell her your side of it, but I've already told her that you're not you don't live at this house anymore with us.
Good. Strong woman. That's what she needed to be. Absolutely. Take no more of his crap.
I mean, it was probably such a long time coming for her too. Like she probably had she couldn't physically get herself there until that moment. Like everybody has their breaking point, and some people's are longer than others. But imagine just the buildup of those emotions over and over.
Well, the fact that he's just so manipulative. The fact that he seriously is. He wants his cake and eat it too. And so he, like I was just saying, he was all over her. He has no qualms. He has no self-respect or respect for her to actually just let her go and say, I'm really, really sorry. But he just constantly taking. Very selfish, man. Very selfish.
Yeah, Jazz in the chat is saying that Joan spilled all the tea. He was a frustrated performer who was never going to be a star, but ironically became a legend as a choreographer, his name becoming his own style. Not only that, he asked her for money to help take care of Joan. Damn. The entitlement he had, like he was surprised that she wouldn't just say, oh, no problem, honey. Yeah, that is something we skipped over that Joan does tell Gwen about Bob, is that he wants to be the star and can't be. He doesn't have the factor that you and I have.
That's very interesting, isn't it? Considering what's happened in history and who's remembered the most, like you were
But
saying
it's true,
before.
but he's famous for choreography
Yeah.
and he's famous for directing. He's not famous for being the performer.
No.
And I think he kind of always wanted to be. For what they're portraying it as is that he always wanted to be in that light, and he couldn't. And maybe that's not to excuse his actions, but maybe that's part of why he was never satisfied with what he had.
Slightly jealous. Interesting, huh?
I don't know. I mean,
We'll never know.
I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't pretend to be a psychiatrist, but I do like to theorize about how people react to certain things. So that could be.
That makes sense. It does make a lot of sense. Yeah, I like it.
But do you have any other thoughts on the episode before we move on to our special segments?
So special. No, I just can't wait for more. I feel like I want to go deeper and faster, and just give me more, give me
Yeah.
more.
And we only have 6 more episodes, so it's like
no, what's going to happen then? That's it.
the drama.
Well, we could. It would be really cool if they could actually make a similar series on different famous Broadway performers.
they might.
That'd be great.
You
Wouldn't
know, I mean, history
it? Fred
has
Astaire, Ginger Rogers. all
history
that
has
good stuff.
definitely a large pool to
Sure
grab
does.
from.
But that would be really cool.
But let's get into our special segment, which is Fosse Fun Facts. Love that. I love tap dancing sounds. Yay. So I looked up an article that gave us some counter between what happened in real life and this episode in particular.
This is going to be good.
So anyone who wants to read the full article, this is from slate.com, and it's called What's Fact and What's Fiction in Fosse Verdon episode 2. So it did say that while they did first work together on Damn Yankees, the audition that she went to was not the first time that they had ever met. They had met in social circles before. And it was true that she and him were both kind of apprehensive about working with one another.
Both of them. Oh.
He said, I don't know her. How do I know we can work together? He apparently asked Prince. And Verdon recalled that she had a reputation for being difficult. I was difficult because I couldn't stand bad dancing. So they both had their apprehensions of working with one another. But, as we see, it turned out very well for both of them
For a while.
in that.
Oh, yeah. in that
I mean, you
context.
can say in their careers, they were very good for each other.
Definitely. Yeah.
Just maybe not in the romantic sense. So moving on to the other Mrs. Fosse. So Joan Verdon, is what we saw in this episode. She did give him his first job, and she did encourage him to take acting classes because she said, you're too good to spend your life in nightclubs. She lifted him out of what he was doing. And he said he'll always be grateful for that. But it says that he didn't leave McCracken on her own. She didn't leave him. Despite her suffering 2 heart attacks during the run of Damn Yankees, he didn't move in with Verdon. They maintained separate apartments, but the relationship was an open secret until Fosse finally divorced McCracken in 1957. He had been waiting for her to be released from a facility where she'd gone to recover from a breakdown.
It kind of shows he has a little bit of a heart. He did have a little bit of a heart.
I don't know if that's a heart or not. She got out of a facility for having a breakdown. He divorces her.
Yeah, but he seems to kind of wait till she's over a little bit of a sickness, and when she seems to be okay again, he's like,
guess.
move on. Well, it's all
I kind of like the story better of her just saying no and leaving.
That works.
I like our theatrical version of the events for that part better. As far as the big dance number, the Mamba dance number that he had to come up with in his big hearing the guy talk through the wall and having the huge blow up about it, that's all true.
That would, yeah, makes sense.
It says, including Fosse's listening through the wall and his furious response to hearing Abbott and Prince say that they thought the original number was terrible. 100% accurate to what we saw in the show.
That would get you, though. Like, all your hard work and the amount of time he spends on the intricacies of everything for it to be cut.
And also, so the breakup between Fosse and Verdon, apparently this is all accurate as well. Fosse and Verdon did stop living together after the cabaret shoot. The final straw was Verdon discovering him in bed with 2 German girls, although she had already received a letter from the translator's furious husband revealing all of what was happening. Moreover, even before Fosse got the cabaret job in 1970, the marriage was in dire condition. I think Bob outgrew me, she told the New York Times. Bob started writing, and he was involved in all kinds of things, and I was so involved with Nicole, I didn't really care if I worked or not. He began to think, oh, you're my wife. I hated that. According to Sam Wasson's biography of Fosse, after the production wrapped, Fosse was spending a post-shoot week in Madrid with the translator when he started having second thoughts. He called Verdon, who agreed to come to Simon's rented villa. Verdon and Joan Simon were indeed close, and Fosse and Simon had collaborated on Little Me in 1962, and then again on Sweet Charity in 1966, with Simon subsequently serving as Fosse's unofficial sounding board on scripts. The reconciliation failed, and Verdon returned to New York and their daughter, and Fosse to the translator.
You're talking about 2, did you say German women in bed? Was that any of the prostitutes that he went and got?
No, it was the translator for Cabaret that we saw in that first episode who got the prostitutes, the one that was standing and then he makes out with afterwards.
Gotcha.
So
the one he ends up with.
So he has an affair with her. Mm-hmm. And so after they tried to reconcile and he says, I'm in love with her, being this woman, he goes back to her and she goes back to New York. Mm-hmm. So those are some true events that we got, and those are some
pretty close for most of it.
Yeah, for most of it, there was only a couple dramatizations of it, but yeah, for the most part, it seems like they're sticking pretty true to real life.
Good, awesome, liking it. And so now news and gossip.
Yeah, let's get into some news and gossip.
News and gossip. I just thought this was cool because obviously always Broadway fans watching this show. So just a bit of news. So there was an article in. Playbill. It was actually a Playbill article.
Oh, cool.
And it was 5 ways that Bob Fosse changed Broadway. And that's pretty good feat. 5 for one, choreographer / director to change Broadway, the whole of Broadway. So here we go. So number 1 was made small movements a big deal. Because previously it's all about da-da-da-da-da, all the good stuff. But no, particularly like you were saying, the tendons, everything, all about the small movements.
And we saw that a little bit too, just even him saying, don't move.
Yeah.
Which
like
a dancer's like being like, don't move.
But that's good. I like it. The second is specific movements for each ensemblist. So rather than being a standard ensemble where everyone does the same thing, different people had different moves, which is cool. Number 3, subverted the audience expectations. So, for example, in Chicago, when he used the 20s music and stuff, but he turned it on its ear by altering the tempo and stuff. 4 was build ensemblists like stars, which is cool. So obviously the musicals had their main talent, but in for example, chorus line, he made ensemblists like the forefront of the show. They became the stars. And number 5 was ensemblists contributed to the choreography. So very much a collaborative effort. He apparently would say to them, okay, this is what I'm thinking, and give them some examples, tell them to go home, and the next day sort of come back and be like, show me what you got. So he would actually take the ideas from the cast and create it into his choreo as well.
Very cool.
So that was cool. So 5 ways that Bob Fosse
that makes
changed
sense
Broadway.
though, because as we saw with him, like them saying that he wanted to be the star, but he was always, when he did perform ensemble,
Yeah,
it makes sense for him to want the ensemble to be more
exactly. Because he understands
forefront.
where they come from and they've got experience. They've been around.
And maybe not being as talented to be able to be,
The
you know,
star.
the star, because maybe you're talented in dance, but maybe you're not talented in singing and acting. So I like that.
I did too. I thought it was awesome. Cool. Not many people can say they've
And
actually
it's
changed
nice
Broadway.
to see that he did some good things.
Yes, he did. All those ones I highly recommend.
As we're rambling about all the bad things, it's good to highlight some of the good things that he did.
Totally.
Let's get into some predictions for next week's episode.
Gosh. Well, it just freaks me out like out of space.
I mean, that's what we're doing. We're putting our brains
Exactly.
into a different headspace so we can
Dimension.
think about. We're going a week forward.
Well, I would like it to continue, as I was saying, like tonight's episode. It made more sense to me. It helped to fill some gaps and it seemed to be more chronological insofar as I know we're going back and forth, but at least it continued and made sense. Just give me more dirt, details and fabulousness. I just want to know. I just love seeing truth. I want to know the truth. So if they can stick to the biography, etc., then that would be awesome. So more of that.
Cool. I agree with you on, because I don't mind so much the skipping around in time. I can follow that, but I like that now that we have where we started and where the breakup happened, when in the first one where we've ended completely. I feel like moving forward, when they jump around, it won't be as confusing where we are. And it looks like from the previews next week that we are going to be doing some more of like the cabaret era and even towards the editing process of the cabaret movie. So I think we're going to, maybe we might even get that scene where she catches him in bed. And I think maybe that scene is when she's dropping off the monkey suit. I don't know. That's my theory.
The monkey suit.
Because they keep going back to that
They do.
freaking monkey
They
head.
do.
So I wonder if that's like they're trying to like really narrow it down to being like her bringing back that suit is the last thing she'll do for him.
That's a good point.
But yeah, so I think I'm excited to see it. As a huge fan of the movie, I'm excited to see more of the breakdown of what he did with Cabaret, the film, and everything like that. So, and then I'm also excited because looks like we see some of the daughter. I'm excited to explore her a little more. Yeah. Especially with her being a producer on the show, like giving her actual
her
story, her
insight.
perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd also definitely want to see more dancing. Give me more dancing. Be
Yes,
great.
this week we got more. I think we got more dancing this week. Yeah.
Just give me more. I want to see a full number. Great. Thank you.
Well, maybe we will get that next week. But until then, where can we keep up with you, Kim, and anyone wants to chat with you about the show?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me personally on all my social media at Kim Davey Live.
And you guys can find me at BRI_Phipps, PHIPPS, on both Twitter and Instagram if you want to chat some more about Fosse or any other Broadway show for that matter with me. And thank you again to Jazz and Watcher Carter in the chat. We enjoyed having you and for all your tidbits that you gave us. You really are our third host today. And we will see you guys all next week to talk a little more Fosse.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.